What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the AMS Podcast. I'm your host, Adrian Michael Soto, discussing things about films, past, present, and future. And as you might have seen in the title, we're going to talk about bad movies. But as I've said before, I don't hate movies. And using the term in the title in just a second, just my least favorite or movies that you all love and people just hate and then becomes your guilty pleasure. And when you hear the term guilty pleasure, let me it's movies that you have seen and everyone else thinks it's terrible. The film will have horrible acting, even give you cheesy one-liners. The film might not be critically received and considered just to be a terrible movie overall. And I'll give you one of my top tier guilty pleasure movies in just a second. But in doing research, spoiler alert, it's the first one here: Nacho Libre, The Day After Tomorrow, Jurassic Park: The Lost World, Con Air, the 1999's The Mummy, Dumb and Dumber, Independence Day, The Fifth Element, and the very first 2001 Fast and the Furious. So really, overall, all these movies, I would say, depending on what you guys think, it becomes. I remember seeing the very first Fast and the Furious, and I was like, "Oh, this is a pretty cool movie." And then later on, as I got older, they ended up saying, "Oh, it's just a Point Break ripoff." And then I think in doing research, they even say Point Break is a guilty movie pleasure. I can't even say it. Well, you know what it means, but in the gist of, like I said, I enjoy all these movies that are here in different ways. I revisit some of them more than others. And in just a second, I'll tell you just it's one of those that, yeah, they've been summer blockbusters. They come out, to some of you that don't know, there'll be certain of these movies that come out in the months of January, February, and I follow people on the YouTube space. They call it the toilet bowl month because, and not literally but figuratively, because movie studios know that they're not going to get as much attention as a blockbuster style movie of the Marvel movies or the 15 Fast and the Furious movie overall. But it's definitely one of those that movie studios, they just place, either they think their film is going to be a success. So at the time of this release, you get all the summer blockbuster movies that are currently out in theaters right now. And other than that, or you'll get the ones that come out later in the fall, leading up to those become the Academy Award nominated movies or the movie award movies. That's the movie studios releasing those 2 to 3 hour plus movies that'll eventually get recognized for awards. But in most cases, some movie studios feel like they have faith in them, and sometimes they don't. So in the gist of what I'm about to show you is I give to my upper echelon, the King of the Mountain. When this movie came out, it was a movie that I would say was, yes, it's silly. I'm a wrestling fan. Yes, I know the gist of wrestling, sports entertainment, but overall, this was a take on um, lucha libre, which is popular in Mexican heritage and Mexican wrestlers, and Jack Black just does a hysterical job. And as you see here in the memes I've shared, is my life is good, real good. And I'm gonna do my impersonation of Nacho. I know it is fun to wrestle. A nice pile drive to the face or a punch to the face. I am singing at the party. I am singing. It's my turn to sing at the party. These are my recreation clothes. I just love the movie because there's so many things I can make this a long episode, but it's basically one of those that is just downright fun and entertaining. And yes, the cheesiness of it. And normally when I give you all a certain topic, I try to find the gist. And guilty movie pleasures can go from action movies, comedies, horror, science fiction, and it's gonna be in just a second. Me showing you a list from IMDb, and the list is fairly not that old, not that far off, a 2020 list. And you all let me know. You all decide, or you let me know off the top of your head, what is your favorite guilty movie pleasure. I even saw researching that some people consider some of the holiday movies, excuse me, to be guilty movie pleasures because they're so silly, but people still watch them. And it's just the gist of it being you get the romantic comedies, the love comedies, and I don't know what it attracts, but like for me, as you see here, I just not just because I'm a fan of wrestling in general, but just the story itself of a guy who wants to help children in an orphanage, and he tries to do wrestling. And in a comedy children's type of movie, you get the shenanigans and funny stuff like what Jack Black does here, which is just really hysterical. And bear with me for just a second. We're gonna go on a list of IMDb here, and it's gonna give us 50 of the best guilty pleasure movies. Guilty movie pleasure. I don't know how you would phrase it. To me, it's all in the same. It's just depending on the thing. And as we go through the list here, you all let me know. You decide: is this your favorite? Have you not seen this movie? Do you not consider it a guilty movie pleasure or guilty pleasure movie? So let me know once we go through it here. And I'm going to minimize myself. Give me just a second. Here we go. So here at number one, they have Cruel Intentions back in 1999, drama romance style, starring Reese Witherspoon, Sarah Michelle Gellar, and Ryan Phillippe. I remember seeing this when I was younger, and I was like, okay, it's silly, but it's one of those teen type dramas or love romance dramas. So, do you agree that it should considered? And then we have Mr. Jack Black again with Kyle Gass, J.R. Reed, Ronnie James, Tenacious D, and The Pick of Destiny back in 2006, an action comedy musical. And Jack Black is infamous with his days in Tenacious D. Then we have Tom Cruise back in 1988, Cocktail, comedy drama romance style, a meta score of only 12. So this is something that's going to have to be on my movie watch list that I'm this looks pretty bad, but to some they come back return to see it. And I'm familiar, as I referenced a list. You have Con Air, none other than Nicolas Cage, John Cusack, John Malkovich, back in 1997, an action crime thriller. When I see it nowadays, especially when it comes out on TV, you can definitely see the cheesiness of it and just what Nicolas Cage is portraying himself to be per se, and a countryman, and yeah, I could definitely say that this is one of those. And if you all have seen it, I'll give you a link in the description of this episode. Check out on the list of what I'm gonna give here. Check out Honest Trailers, and They make playfully make fun of films for such a long time, and they've done one of Con Air, and if you all see it, check it out. It's pretty hilarious. So let's keep going here on the list. We have Fear back in 1996, starring Mark Wahlberg, Reese Witherspoon, William Peterson, and Amy Bernier. This looks like a drama slash thriller. I vaguely remember seeing this one, but overall, thus far on our listing here, everything is almost at a 50%. So a D, or almost not even a D, an F, and an F minus for Cocktail, unfortunately. And then we go into Jennifer's Body, starring Megan Fox, Amanda Seyfried, Adam Brody, and Johnny Simmons, with a meta score of 47, I believe. I've only seen this in parts, or I saw the trailer once that um Megan Fox is possibly a vampire, unless I'm thinking of another movie. But let me know if you've all seen that one. Dear John, a drama mystery romance back in 2010 with Channing Tatum and Amanda Seyfried. And it's one of those that I believe this one was based on a book. Correct me if I'm wrong. I thought I saw it gain the attention. I remember when it was released at the time. So, unless I'm guessing that the story itself is pretty cheesy. Because there's other good romantic other films, but to the people that rated it here, and especially on IMDb, not everybody enjoyed it. And for me, if you all know, I am a Jurassic Park fan. I love the first film, and the second one itself is okay. It's not as good as the first. Then it goes down to even the third one, Jurassic Park 3. And to those who have seen it, I hear reference that people think the moment where the young girl does a gymnastics scene to get away from the raptor. And there is just silly moments overall. And I feel like Steven Spielberg was still trying to capture the magic of Jurassic Park, and overall just ended up coming subpar. And a 59% or 59 Metascore, that's still pretty low. As I'm talking to you, I'm gonna see what the first Jurassic Park got, which I would assume is in the high 90s. The high 90s. Give me just a second here. 68, but it's one of those that is a 90% on Rotten Tomatoes. So I'm not really focused on the Metascore as much, but I would end up having to um have to see on that. But yeah, I enjoy, definitely, like Con Air, a guilty movie pleasure list for me. And the other day I heard this on the radio where overrated, I think the way they phrased it was overrated cult classics that have become cult classics, or I don't know how I remember how they phrased it, but Love Actually, which has gained a lot of popularity back in 2003 with Hugh Grant, Martine McCutcheon, Liam Neeson, and Laura Linney. And overall, I've seen that it's gained the following, and especially at the time when this, and I believe Alan Rickman, yeah, I think that's Alan Rickman from this poster here, but it's definitely one that has gained such a large popularity and becoming one of those that that people have enjoyed. And it's a movie during, it's a Christmas movie. It's like I said earlier, I've seen certain other Christmas movies that have made different lists, and everybody's going to have a different list. Then now we have Point Break. When I saw this movie about a year ago or a few years ago, because I remember or later down that I would hear on the webs, as I referenced earlier, that the first Fast and the Furious movie is just a rip off of Point Break. And I check it out, and yeah, I don't see it being a guilty. It's silly and of the things that happen, but I kind of see it as a interesting kind of take action thriller crime. Certain moments I'd understand, but okay, I'll I'm not gonna argue, and you can disagree on this, but I'm gonna kind of give Point Break the benefit of the doubt. Then Top Gun, seeing this, um, I don't see it as it being a bad movie. Obviously, Mr. Tom Cruise is back again. Excuse me, Mr. Tom Cruise is back again, or did a sequel to Top Gun Maverick, and he captured the different things. I think I would have to interview people or have another conversation with a friend episode and just talk about guilty movie pleasures. But now, kind of remembering, looking back, I don't know, certain moments in the love story that Maverick goes through, the moments he has with the other pilots and things like that, which kind of make it silly, but that's another time to go into specifics. And of course, the movie that started it all, that's already at 10 movies thus far, the first Fast and the Furious movie. You have the undercover cop dating a girl and then finding out that her brother is a wanted criminal who steals DVDs and other electronic stuff. And it was one of those I would definitely say is a guilty movie pleasure. Yes, it's silly. And then all of a sudden, Vin Diesel decided that he is going to become a street racer, then a spy, secret agent spy who has superpowers and nothing happens to him. Like I said, if you don't understand that reference and you've seen the latest or previous Fast and the Furious movies, check out Honest Trailers, and they reference a lot of different times and moments for that series itself. Crank, I think when I see Jason Statham movies, some of his movies, not all of them, are definitely guilty pleasure movies, and this is one that is, I would say, is probably cheesy, but I've heard a lot of people coming back to it, and I'll read the synopsis for a second. A professional assassin learned his rival has injected him with a poison, and it will kill him if his heart rate drops. And if you all have seen the movie, you know, to prevent his heart rate from dropping, he has to do something specific. And it's obviously a part of the movie, but I'll leave it at that. And as we continue down the list, we have Star Wars Episode 2 Attack of the Clones. I recently just did a podcast episode of ranking the Star Wars films. Overall, I enjoy all the Star Wars films in different ways. And thus far, I watched this back in 2002 when I was a lot younger. And I thought it was the most fantastic thing ever. I still enjoy it, but just a small thing where I prefer the other films as opposed to this one. And let me know what you think of what is your guilty pleasure movie out of the Star Wars films. Then we go to a movie that the premise, the title within itself is pretty explanatory. Final Destination. I think they did 6 of them. And it basically just goes to show of how people die in kind of everyday ways with the objects and things around you. And the first one I'd say is definitely pretty good. it's a entertaining watch, and I could consider it being a guilty movie pleasure because after they did parts 2 through 6, I think, then it's one of those where it's like, okay, they just try to go through a list of ways that people can die from different objects. Then we go into The Devil Wears Prada by Anne Hathaway, Meryl Streep, Adrian Griner, and Emily Blunt. I I know people who have seen this. They enjoy it for what it is, and it's definitely a comedy drama. So it's this is the first one I think that has a 62 Metascore. So it's above almost all of them thus far. And as we continue on the list, Entourage, the famous television show, decided to go the movie route. Didn't get the critical acclaim. I remember it was back in 2015. It was silly. 10 Things I Hate About You, based on Taming of the Shrew. And I think I watched that back, the actual like film. And then I think it was a film, not a book, but back in high school and done by the late Heath Ledger, Julia Stiles, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and Larissa Oluk. I probably butchered that. I'm sorry. Then we go into Can Hardly Wait, and back in 1998, The Cell, 2000. Looks like a young Jennifer Lopez. Basic Instinct, Blow, 2001. Euro Trip. Now we go into a comic book movie. I did a episode a while ago on ranking the Batman movies and kind of thinking about it. Yes, it's silliness, and that's when I think after they did this one, Warner Brothers decided to go even more silly in creating Batman Forever than Batman and Robin. And it was something a bit different from the very first Batman. Michael Keaton does a wonderful job as Batman. Michelle Pfeiffer, her iteration as Catwoman, and then Danny DeVito's interpretation of the Penguin, which kind of reminded me or reminds me of the cartoon per se, but very cartoonish. So I understand it being a guilty movie pleasure. And then Blades of Glory. Here we go. Well, anything to anyone that's knows of Will Ferrell, fan of Will Ferrell, or thinks some of his movies are considered guilty movie pleasures. This one is silly. The premise is dumb, but I enjoy it. It's one of those that I definitely enjoy to watch on occasion. And it's even ice skating is a sport because you see it in the Olympics. And him and John Heater, Amy Poehler, Will Arnett, it's definitely one that becomes a guilty movie pleasure that I'll start watching it, and it's one of those that you enjoy watching it. It's so bad, but it's still good to you. And let's go down the list here. We have Step Up, She's the Man, Identity Thief. This one is another silly one, but it's a very the main part of the story is a heartwarming per se because it deals with Jason Bateman as a dad just trying to get his life back and dealing with his family and then getting his identity stolen by Melissa McCarthy. And yeah, the premise is silly, a lot of shenanigans like any comedy. And it's one of those that I'll definitely catch on TV. Radio, it's a biography, drama slash sport. When I see this one, this is I'm gonna have to do an episode of movies that make you cry. This one definitely had the tearjerker in a certain part in the movie. I I don't. Maybe I need to re-see it to consider it a guilty movie pleasure, but I don't think it's terrible. But to those who have seen it, you may disagree with me wholeheartedly, and that's fine. But it's been quite a while that I've seen it. Man, 2003, that was ages ago. But I'm definitely gonna have to rewatch it. And it's a heartwarming story, and it's based on a true story that the actual person that Cuba Gooding Jr. played was still a part of the school and everything, and they treated him, respected him. So definitely a good one to see. Whoop, let me go down. The Family Stone, Half Baked, The Number 23. Back in 2007, I think this is one of the times that Jim Carrey decided to go really serious because this was like a thriller slash crime. And as I go down here, I see Accepted. This is definitely a guilty movie pleasure because the premise of the story is silly of a group of friends or people decide to create their own college and just a bunch of craziness and shenanigans happen and it overall becomes entertaining to say the least. And it would definitely, I would say, I would add it to the list of guilty movie pleasures that come to mind. Failure to Launch with Matthew McConaughey, Sarah Jessica Parker, Kathy Bates, Terry Bradshaw, back in 2006. This was one of those that I believe, one of many that Matthew McConaughey did that I think were probably, there's a list out there that you could find of guilty movie pleasures that he's done. Then The Notebook, it's a drama slash romance. I remember seeing it vaguely a long time ago or in parts, but I don't, not unless I guess there's certain moments that make it cheesy, bad one liners in the story plot itself. But it's one of those that gets mentioned as a perfect love story and things like that. Jumper, this is a one with Hayden Christensen where he has the ability to teleport himself. And that one, I can understand it being a guilty movie pleasure. Boondock Saints, I know a good friend who enjoys, has referenced this to me and has told me that I need to watch this. Major League, The Village. I'm like what M. Night Shyamalan does in his movies. This one I like the least. There's some other bad, not bad, but least favorites that are way better than this one. So I can understand the list. And of course, here, The Happening. The Happening is my least favorite M. Night Shyamalan movie because the premise of it is really, really dumb. And it has a 34 Metascore and The Village a 44. So definitely one of M. Night Shyamalan's not greatest types of movies that he's done. 300. I remember seeing this with some friends from middle school or high school. We were freshmen in high school, and we went with a family member's friend or something, and it was definitely one of those that yeah, the action was cool, the story itself, but I guess the way it's done and the ways that people don't like Zack Snyder's directing or directing style that they would consider it on the list here. And the whole 9 yards. I remember these movies being silly but still entertaining. The Gift, Kate Blanchett, Katie Holmes, Keanu Reeves. Dude, Where's My Car? I forgot about that one. That is definitely a guilty pleasure movie or guilty movie pleasure. Cabin in the Woods, The Girl Next Door, The New Guy, Crybaby, excuse me, A Million Ways to Die in the West, The Time Traveler's Wife, and that's it. And as As I said, they're doing like the research and presenting this all to you. You can go from deciding on specific genres. You can do a guilty movie pleasure of action movies, comedies, horror, family. The list can go on and on. And you all let me know, or you decide, what are some movies that you guys like watching, or it's you love to watch, it's so bad you love to watch and you return to it. Like for me, I'll die on the rock, not literally, figuratively. I wear Nacho Libre is one movie that I quote, and people know that I'm going to quote it because it's one of those silly movies that it's just enjoyable to watch. And like I said, film is subjective, even sometimes maybe with guilty movie pleasures. You might not agree with what I just said right there, and that's totally fine. But like I said, we all love movies overall, and you all let me know, what is your favorite guilty movie pleasure? What have you not seen that you want to see, that you've heard is bad, but still people enjoy watching it? Thank you all so much for watching. This has been the AMS Podcast. I'm your host, Adrian Michael Soto, discussing things about films, past, present, and future. I'll see you all next time, guys. Bye bye for now.